Want more Gators Breakdown? Join Gators Breakdown Plus. Starting at $3 a month, get access to unique episodes, plus a blog, chat room, giveaways, shout-outs, and more. Gators Breakdown Plus is furthering the interaction with fans and listeners like you. Head to gatorsbreakdown.supportingcast.fm to join Gators Breakdown Plus today. Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters, and you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. You know what else is ready to go? Football season. It is here. Fall camp is starting on Friday. I'm recording this on Thursday night, but most of you will probably listen to it on Friday. So football is here. We are ready for some football. The Gators will hit the field on Friday to start fall camp ahead of the 2021 season. So we get to talk some football. To update you guys, media will not be allowed at practice. So no open practices for the media or the public. So it will be word of mouth again, like it was in the springtime. So, we'll just have to take everything with a grain of salt and just see what the Gators look like when they take on FAU in the first game of the season. But we did get a chance to speak with Dan Mullen and some players ahead of the Friday start of fall camp. So that's basically what this episode will be built on. All the sound that and video here on YouTube. So all the interviews, press conferences that happen in Gainesville, it will be the only in-person interaction that we have with Mullen and the players this ahead of the season. Everything else will be Zoom from here on out. So luckily Florida did get the chance for some in-person interaction for the first time with most of the players, except for SEC Media Days. First interaction with the players since the end of the 2019 season. So, but back to Zoom. So we'll see where we'll get plenty like we're used to from the 2020 season. But Zoom from here on out, virtual interviews from here on out with Gators coaches, coaching staff, and the players from here on out. So plenty to get into from Dan Mullen and a few players, Damian Pierce, Justin Shorter, Jeremiah Moon, Jay Dunhill, Trey Dean, probably forgetting somebody there. I think I got them all. Stuart Reese, they're on offensive line too. I think that was all of them. So a good bit of info and talk we get to discuss here on Gators Breakdown. So some good. Damian Pierce is a funny guy. Yeah, I think we'll get that across here. To kind of just warn you guys, I can only show 3 minutes of video from each player in a day's time. That's just kind of a SEC Florida rule there. So can't. I would have liked to share more, of course, but I think we'll get through about an hour here on an episode. I had a poll that I threw up for ahead of fall camp as well, asking you guys, especially on Twitter, I threw out there what position battle interests you the most, and that was a runaway with running back and offensive line. So I'll share the results of that as well. But before we get off here on Gators Breakdown, so let's start it. And we'll start at quarterback. Of course, a lot of Emory Jones talk because of the change on offense that, of course, is going to happen. And some good thoughts here from Dan Mullen and what the players had to say. I really liked it. They're defending their quarterback in a couple ways here. He's more than just a runner. And I know we know that aspect of Emory Jones' game will be a big part of this Gator offense. But they are letting us know. Don't forget about the thrower that Emory Jones can be as well.
I think for him, I think the expectations, but being a mature guy, it helps. I think, being around the guys, seeing how they handle it, how to prepare for different situations, how he gets himself ready for the season. I think there's a lot to that within maturity of knowing how to prepare and how to do things. And And then the expectations that come along with that and the responsibility when everybody's looking at you. I mean, he's got to go win the job still, but I think everybody looks at you as the guy that's going to be the guy. There's certain different levels of expectations for you within the good and the bad, and I think the maturity certainly helps him to be able to handle all of that.
So everything is about timing, and if you do it over and over and over again, the timing will get better. So I'd say our big thing was just make sure that we got the reps in with Emery and Anthony, both quarterbacks. So literally, like I promise you, probably every single other day we would be out there on the field or in the indoor throwing for like 2 hours, just trying to get timing down. And even yesterday we were all out there throwing, throwing around, running routes. So it's just timing thing. But I think this year will be perfectly fine.
Have you seen sort of those leadership traits that Kyle presented last year with Emery this year?
Oh yeah. I'd say Emery. He's a very athletic human being, and just watching him during drills and stuff like that, like a jackrabbit going back and forth. Even we had this thing during the spring where like we had to basically do all these drills and race each other, and he's beating me by 3-4 yards, and I'm like, how is this man even so quick? But I'd say he's a great leader, and you guys are really going to see him stand up this year. I would say he definitely should throw more of the run, but we could just keep that a secret for now, so defense is coming on the run. But I'm I don't know, I don't even know what else to say. I'd say just wait till that first game September 4th, and that'll answer everyone's question about it.
I don't like to call Emery a dual threat because most people see Emery break and see him run, but being Emery's, that's my boy right there. I call Emery a mobile pocket passer because this guy, he can launch that ball. Like that, most people, that's probably his most underrated aspect of his game. Like he can launch the ball and he wants to throw the ball first. He only runs when it's absolutely nothing there or pressure comes and he got to get out the pocket. But I feel like Emery bring a lot to the table this year, and he's going to shock a lot of people. It keeps the defense on their toes because with Emery being the dynamic quarterback that he is, he can make plays with his feet, with his arm, or he can dish it out to us. We could be at receiver. We have 2 running backs, one in the backfield, one might motion out to the receiver. You feel me? It just gives us multiple options and try to catch the defense off guard and draw up plays to our advantage.
Well, if y'all think Emery Jones is not going to throw the ball, that's a mistake. I say he has the ability to use his legs. I think his legs, is add addition to his arm. His arm can be very good. So I think people not thinking that. I guess we just got to show them this shit coming up.
There we go. Got to show him. And that's what it is. Look, guys, we know we've seen Emery Jones with his legs. We know he's a runner. We know he's a capable runner. What we haven't seen enough of is him being a thrower. And what these players are telling us is, look, don't worry. Emery Jones has got the arm, and they see him more as a thrower and not a runner, and only a runner when he has to. So, I love what Dameon Pierce said. What Emery Jones brings to the table is going to be a versatile offense, and you'll see an open offense. As there's this maybe a debate. I don't know. People out there, this will open up the offense more because of his legs. Well, it opens up the versatility of the offense more, not necessarily just open up the offense. The offense was open last year, and you were sitting there throwing for 400 yards a game. So the offense was plenty open, but the versatility is now open to where you can be a threat running, you can be a threat passing. That's what Emery Jones is going to bring to the table. And I love the confidence here in the players and Emery, but making sure out there that look, he is a thrower. And look, I still think you can use the term dual threat. I know Dameon Pierce doesn't want to call him that, but you can still use the term dual threat. Dual means you can run and you can pass. You can pass and you can run. Doesn't matter which one's first. Doesn't matter which one you do more of. I mean, Emery Jones is going to throw the ball more than he runs it. So he's going to be a dual threat quarterback, and probably, hopefully, as these guys are saying, maybe one that relies on his arm and then only uses his legs in trouble. Now, there's going to be design runs. Of course, that's a staple of a Mullen offense if he has a mobile quarterback. We saw Trask run plenty, even though he's not a quote-unquote mobile quarterback. Those quarterback draws, quarterback powers are still in the playbook. So, of course, we're going to get it with Emery Jones with his ability to run. But, I do think putting a number on it's going to be tough. Does he throw 30 times a game? That's probably the number to look for. And look, I don't really know if it's over or under that, what that means for the offense. If it's under that, I hope it means the run game with Emery's working, the run game with the running backs is working, and he doesn't have to throw over 30 times. Or if he does, the positive of that is they trust him to throw more than 30 times, and the offense is pretty open because the run game is going to be there with Emery and these running backs. That's what the, for what you have at running back, and we'll get into that in just a second. Of course, the run game is going to be there more than it was the last couple of years. And plus, you don't have Pitts, you don't have Tony to those weapons outside. The run game is going to open up with the 5 running backs that you have. So the running game is going to be part of it. So and it may be a soundbite later. I can't remember if I had time to leave it in or not, but every game is going to be different. There might be, I think Stuart Reese says that. So I think, I'll get into that in just a bit. I think Stuart Reese does say something about it. Every game is going to be different there. So, but when we get to the end of the season, does Emory Jones average 30 passes a game? What in it? I think that's the over-under we should probably go with, and we'll look at that and maybe see how that plays out during the season. But kind of going back to what Dan Mullen said earlier to kick off Emory Jones and the Emory Jones talk, it was kind of weird to me that we did not get Emory Jones at ACC Media Days, and then we didn't get him here for the kickoff of Fall Camp Media Day either. So, I don't think there's anything to it. I just think it's weird that we would have liked to talk to the quarterback one of these media sessions. And I'm sure we'll get Emory next week sometime. But, to kick off the season, whether it be at SEC Media Days, whether it be at Florida, the quote-unquote media day to kick off the season, Emory Jones, it would have been nice to talk about Emory Jones, but or talk to Emory Jones. But we'll get to talk about Emory Jones from Mullen and the players. But Mullen, of course, discusses the expectations and maturity from Emory Jones, and he's had plenty of time for the maturity part of it to just let it develop. Coming as a true freshman, it's a lot to ask, especially for a Dan Mullen quarterback. He doesn't throw his quarterbacks out there, so it would be asked a lot to be a mature enough quarterback to take over for an offense, for a Dan Mullen offense. But he was mature enough for Dan Mullen to put him in there as a true freshman and in big game situations against Georgia and other teams, LSU in 2019 as well. He's played in some big games. He's shown some early maturity, but it takes time to be a mature, like a Kyle Trask, be out there to lead the team. And that's the things he's learned over the last couple of years from Felipe Franks and Kyle Trask. That was something Mullen spoke on. I kind of kept that out of the because just for the sake of time. But he talked about learning from those two guys, learning to mature, learning to become a leader, and that's what Emory Jones is going to bring to the table. He's been around the program, he's been around these players in the locker room long enough for them to look at him as a leader. He's not this new guy coming in. He's not a transfer quarterback coming in. He's been around this team. He's been around these coaches. He's been around these players, staff members to become and grow into a leader. I think that all that part of it, I think it's going to go pretty far for Emory Jones here. But, part of it too, as Mullen said, the expectations. How do you deal with the expectations? And that maturity goes into that too. If you have a bad game, how do you bounce back? Bad games happen. Bad games happen. How do you bounce back from it? Leadership and but how do you handle expectations is going to be a big part of it too. There's going to be big expectations on Emory Jones being Dan Mullen's first quarterback recruit at the University of Florida. There's a little bit of pressure there, pressure for Mullen. We talked about that a few weeks ago, but pressure for Emory too to kind of just live up to that elite quarterback recruit and Dan Mullen's first quarterback recruit at Florida, and to hold off somebody like Anthony Richardson, who's behind you, nipping at your heels, who, for all intents and purposes, is going to get some playing time. And then we'll see where it goes. But this is Emory Jones' team. He'll lead the team in the fall camp. He'll lead the team into the season. There's some expectations that he needs to handle to go along with it. So a lot of good Emory Jones stuff. I love the way the players talk about him. I love the way the players talk about his arm. Love the way the players talk about him being a quarterback, and a quarterback that likes to go throw the ball and not necessarily run when he has to. So I'm very interested in Dan Mullen's play calling here of how many design runs, how many times does Emory Jones look to escape the pocket. Hopefully it's he's not escaping the pocket too early. Hopefully it's he's going through the offense, he's hitting his reads. The read's not there, the guy's not open, then you can take off and run. Or if a bad block is happening and you see the bad block happening, to take off and run, get something out of the play, live the play another day, not make a mistake, not force a throw, not fumble, get hit from behind, so anything like that. So, pocket presence, I think, is going to be pretty important to watch early on for one Emory Jones, especially week 3 when Alabama comes to town. Let's shift the focus now to the run game, running backs. Hey, we got a DeMarcus Bowman update here from Dan Mullen. So we'll start with that. We'll get the Dan Mullen's thoughts on DeMarcus Bowman and some other players' thoughts, mainly Dameon Pierce here on the Florida run game.
I mean, he looked good in a little bit in spring, but we got to see how he picks things up, how he learns, and obviously, that hurts. Being a first-year player when you kind of miss a whole installation. This is kind of now. It's almost like he's going through the installation and learning it all for the first time because of how much he missed of the installation in spring. Our job is putting guys in position to do what they do well on the field. I wouldn't be shocked to see us with multiple running back packages this year with more than one on the field at a time, a little more than we've done maybe in the past, just utilizing our talent and our depth of what we have at that spot. But also those guys really buying in to the program, and understanding how big a role they can make in special teams, and when you get into play count of the ability to stay healthy, the ability to stay fresh by rotating a bunch of guys through, and our guys have really bought into that.
As a running back, that made me feel excited. I mean, we got more plays drawn up.
But, at times last year, you guys didn't even try to run the ball, right? It had to be a little frustrating at times for you personally.
It may be frustrating a little bit, but like I said in the previous interview, bro, we had, a generational quarterback here at Florida and maybe one of the greatest tight ends in the history of college football. So heading to this season, like Mullen said, it's going to be different, obviously, with Emory at quarterback and some of those two back sets. So we'll see what's going on this year. I like to run through people, not around people. We got Elite. He's I think Elite like being open field more, like more pass packages or whatever. And Naquan, he like a little Swiss Army knife. You feel me? We could put him out in the pass game, or he's short of stock enough to run through you too. You feel me? And then we got Bowman and Lorenzo, who are more of our top end speed guys. Like if they get a step on you, you're not catching them. So just hang that up.
Boom. There we go. Quick rundown of the running backs and their attributes there from one Dameon Pierce. But I'm telling you, man, you guys go out there. I believe all the interviews will be on YouTube or on YouTube at some point. So believe after Gators Breakdown, go listen to the full interviews. I want to keep you guys here for now, but go check out the interviews. You will love Dameon Pierce and his approach to talking to the media and looking ahead to this season. Like I'm a big Dameon Pierce fan. I'm not sure how he's going to be the leader of that running back group. And going back to Dameon Pierce or DeMarcus Bowman, Dan Mullen's first. That was the first bite there from Dan Mullen. He was talking about DeMarcus Bowman and basically installation and going back to that point of his game by missing so much spring practice. I think he was only out there for the first week of spring practice before he got injured. Was not a major injury. He will be ready to go for fall camp. He'll be out there for fall camp starting on Friday, but he is behind, and he's behind some other running backs out there that's in the rotation, of course. Dameon Pierce went down the list of what Florida has at running back. Called basically himself the bruiser, going into the line, lacking a whole lot of contact. Malik Davis, more of the passing threat. And we saw that last year. And maybe he is, lining up in the slot just a little bit just to get some more touches in his hands and also have some more running backs get some more touches out of the backfield, give them some more touches as well. Naquan Wright basically called him the best all-around back. He's got the speed, but he can also run through you. We saw that at times last year, too. He could be physical a little bit. I like some of his moves we saw last year, the flashiness we saw from Wright. But interesting, Dameon Pierce brings up his physicality as well as part of his game. But then what we've been talking about the whole time, the two other running backs, Lingard and Bowman, they have the top end speed nobody else has in that running back room. So how do you get them involved? How do you get them to the edge? How do you get them to the outside? That's not going to be everything you use them for, but I think those are parts of the offense, part of the scheming that's going to be from Dan Mullen is to get those guys in situations where they can use their speed and outrun everybody. And like Dameon Pierce says, good luck catching them once they get there. And I know we can make too much of one player or whatever. And You go back to Lorenzo Lingard last year versus Vanderbilt, and you see some of his runs there. He looked faster than everybody. And I'd love to know why he didn't get more touches last year as well. And I know that's a big sticking point for a whole lot of people. And we'll get into it later on with the poll that I threw up, is the sharing of carries at running back. And I just don't know. I don't know how that's going to work out. I know a lot of people think Dan Mullen is too reliable and reliant on seniority. And a lot of people don't want Dameon Pierce getting more carries or Malik Davis getting more carries. They want to see Lingard. They want to see Bowman get more carries. Look, a lot more goes into it. We've talked about that before. Can you block? Can you help protect your quarterback? Can you catch out of the backfield? Those are going to be parts of it too. Dan Mullen doesn't want his offense predictable, and that can be part of it. If you're only out there trying to, if you can't block, but you're only out there to run a wheel route, if you're out there just to catch a ball out of the backfield or run a tall sweep, teams to pick up on that. So the thing here, we need all these running backs to be well-rounded. And, hopefully be on the field. Be on the field at the same time. That was a common theme here. 2 back sets. You heard Dameon Pierce say it. You heard Dan Mullen say it. I think we've been waiting on that. And I thought, we go back to 2018. I remember previewing Dan Mullen's first season, and we really thought we might see Jordan Scarlett and Michael Pirine in the backfield a whole lot. And I think we did get it just a bit. I think we thought we might get it a little more. And when Malik Davis come back from injury a little bit too, we thought we might see it with Pirine and Davis in 2019. If I forget the names I said in 2018, but Pirine and Scarlett together in 2018, and maybe Pirine and Davis together in 19, didn't really get a whole lot of it. But Dan Mullen brought it up. Dameon Pierce brought it up. And I think that's going to be a part of the offense. When you go this deep, when you need to disperse carries between 5 running backs, I think you're going to see, and you got some weapons there. You got Emory Jones in the backfield, and you got DeMarcus Bowman on one side and Dameon Pierce on one side. Naquan Wright and Malik Davis splitting the quarterback. I mean, the possibilities are endless here with that. Hopefully these guys can step up to the plate, earn their carries, and if one guy can be the bell cow, one guy, and all these guys need to go out there and basically force Mullen's hand to give them the ball. If you're the playmaker out there, go prove it. I think you'll get the ball if you go out there and prove it. There's a lot to be proven for these running backs as far as reliability and consistency. Now, that's one thing we haven't got. And look, part of it is the offensive line. We'll get into that too, and what Stuart Reese has to say about the offensive line. But it's been a team effort there at running back. I say more on the offensive line, but those guys need to be at the running back position. Also need to be held accountable just a bit for some of the consistency or lack of consistency, I should say, from the run game. All right. Teased it just a second ago. Stuart Reese, offensive line transfer from Mississippi State, joined the team last year. You want to get a little bit of his story here of his first year at Florida, how it affected him and the offensive line, and I really like Reese's demeanor as well when talking about the offensive line.
Spring and summer is real important because that's the time for me to lean up. Not having that period really affected me negatively. So being able to have a spring and a summer training session has really helped this year for me to get back in the type of shape that I'm used to being in, especially for the season. So it's a real big part of this year for me. I felt it, throughout the season, and then, having to be out 2 weeks again with COVID, and then having to sit out another week due to a concussion last year. That, it really had a toll on my body as far as conditioning and stuff like that. So, like I said, having this period of training, spring and summer this year has really helped me out. For us, our job doesn't really change. As offensive linemen, you have to be good at both. I mean, playing for 2 different styles of quarterbacks, having Kyle come in and him being more of a pocket passer, having Emory come in. I personally do think he's a dual threat because I've seen his ability to run. But, it doesn't really change because, like I said, as an offensive lineman, you have to be ready for both. Going into a game, the game plan may be different, week to week. So you can't just get stuck on, being able to run block or being able to pass block because, there might be a game this year where Emory has to be a pocket passer. So, it has to fit, whether it's run or pass. One of the things that I like about our unit is, we gel really well. We've never had any issues or, ego problems between any of us. We all feel like it's a real brotherhood. As far as physicality, I mean, we're always going to be physical. That's what Coach Mullen and our staff prides this program on, is being physical, coming out and out-toughing people in the game. Even if we do lose, I mean, that team is probably not going to want to play us again because of how physical we were. So, physicality is going to be a big part of the season this year. Like we said before, having Emory back there and having running backs from last year, we're going to be able to do a lot more damage from the run game.
Good stuff there from Stuart Reese, and he's right. The physicality has got to be there from this offensive line. We've seen that aspect of the offensive line of the run game lacking the last couple of years. Just no physicality, hardly, or not consistently at least. Florida still don't get tackled for a whole lot of lost yardage, but they don't hit the big plays either. It's 3 yards in a cloud of dust is what the kind of run game has been the last couple of years. And of course, you've had LaMichael Piron bust some long runs. Of course, Auburn 2 years ago and in the bowl game versus Virginia, but very, very tough to find explosive run plays last year. So that's where they got to get better. And physicality goes a long way in that. And Stuart Reese, credit him too. A whole lot of honesty there from him. Of look, and guys, I know you're tired of hearing it. I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired of bringing it up too. But COVID did affect some people more than others. And if you're a transfer from Mississippi State and you're coming into an offense, and it's a different offense than what you were used to when you're Dan Mullen and John Hevesy were at Mississippi State, you needed every bit of development. You needed every bit of getting in shape with Nick Savage that you could get. And a player like Stuart Reese didn't get it. And then he gets injured. That puts him even further behind during the season when he actually is learning, when he actually is playing in it. And like I said, I hate bringing it up because it does sound like an excuse, but some excuses can be valid, and that one is valid. I think at some point, did everybody deal with it? Absolutely. Everybody dealt with it different. That's always been my point with it. And it did affect some people more than others. And it really did seem like it affects Stuart Reese. He's lost some weight. He's in better shape this offseason. He spoke on that as well. So I didn't include that, but of course I can tell you about it because that's what he said. So, Stuart Reese, I expect big things from him in this offensive line that really needs to show up this year. Does he play center? Does he play right guard? I think that's still the question out there, all about what Kingsley Egwueken can do. If he can step in at center, then does that move Reese to right guard? What does that mean for right tackle? Is Gene DeLance still there? Does Josh Braun move out there? I've kind of thought the starting five would be Garage, starting from left to right, Garage, White, maybe Reese at center, Braun at right guard, DeLance at right tackle. We'll see how it all shapes up. I think that would be your starting five to start spring. Maybe Egwueken there at center, shift Reese to right guard. Then I don't know what you do at right tackle. Maybe it's still DeLance, which I think DeLance is going to be your starting right tackle game one. No, you don't want to hear it. We've discussed plenty about it. I think that's what it's going to be. So how does that affect Egwueken, Reese, and Braun? I don't know. I don't know how you work it out there. At least you got 6 guys to talk about. And I know a lot of you, will switch that back to 5 because of the Lance, but he's going to be in that rotation. So you have to mention 6 players there at least that's going to be in that starting offensive line rotation. And, but he's right. They got to get back to the mental part of being a physical offensive line. But look, I think style of play also goes into that. So as he said, going back to a quarterback that can run, a running game that goes 5 deep, an offensive line that, for all intents and purposes, for me, has probably been recruited more and developed more from John Hevesy in that style. So hopefully, going back to that style of offense kind of just helps the development a little bit. And look, I know a lot of people are kind of just tired of John Hevesy and the way the offensive line plays, recruiting part of that as well. But looking at what we're just looking at right now, ahead in a preview of the 2021 season, there are some pieces there that got to stay healthy. They got to get a 5-man rotation they feel better about. For this style of offense, I think this offensive line can be okay. I don't expect great things. Maybe if it is a great, I say quote unquote great offensive line, I think it's going to be a lot to do with Emory Jones. I think it's going to be a lot to do with these running backs, helping them out. And we'll see where it goes. But the style of play, I think, will lend itself to a more physical offensive line. We'll see if it translates to better play when they line up and play some ball games. All right, let's keep it going. Keep it going with the offense and some wide receiver talk here from Dan Mullen, talking about how to replace a player like Kadarius Toney, and some more wide receiver talk from Justin Shorter.
He's who he was, and we knew what his skill set was early on, and then as he matured and grew, it rolled into being a first-round draft pick. I don't know if we have a guy like that. I mean, we didn't have a first-round receiver the year before, so there was nobody, Yeah, his skill set's unique, different, and you utilize him differently. So I don't know anybody will be. The same with, I don't know who's going to be Kyle Pitt's skill set this year for us. But we're going to utilize those guys in a very different way.
We're not really replacing them. I'd say we're just bringing in a very new crop of wideouts, that are well trained. I'd say our group, we're young, but we're all hungry. Every single day, everyone's out there putting in that extra work to really be that big group nationwide. So I think everyone's really putting in the work. And our group, we definitely work super hard, extremely hard, and we have Coach G leading us. So I'd say really this year, we all just can't wait because we're all quiet now. We're all just putting in the work and quiet. We just can't wait till this year so we can go out there and Emory throws that first ball up and watch one of us, jump up and get it and then stand up and scream, and then we just keep on going, the whole year. So I just really can't wait to, show that off.
There we go. Some wide receiver talk, talking about replacing a player like Kadarius Toney and Kyle Pitts. I like what Justin Shorter said. We're bringing in a new crop. We're not really replacing those guys. And if you think about it, you're not replacing the guy. You can't replace a Kadarius Toney. You can't replace a Kyle Pitts. You're not going to be asking these guys, some of these receivers that you have, to be doing the same things as the Kyle Pitts and a Kadarius Toney. Those guys, they were first-round picks for a reason. Kadarius Toney, we knew his skill set. He just finally put it together in his last year. Kyle Pitts, when you talk about a generational tight end, you can't just sit there and say, well, we'll just roll out there the next one and he can do it too. No, you take away from what Kyle Pitts did if you can sit there and say Keon Zipper can go out there and do that. Kamori Gamble can go out there and do that. No, and we know that. We're not saying they're going to. But, that's, I think, a lot of the narrative out there from outside of Gator Nation. This guy ain't going to do what Kyle Pitts did. We know that. But can Justin Shorter do some of what Kyle Pitts did? Can Jacob Copeland do what some of Kadarius Toney did? And then you have other players make up for what some of the other attributes of those players. And then you get it. You piece it together. You adapt for what you have. Not one single player is going to replace a Kadarius Toney. Not one single player is going to replace a Kyle Pitts. But Florida has a lot of options at wide receiver that I think they feel pretty good about. Jacob Copeland leading the way. Justin Shorter sitting there talking to the media. We saw him go out and get some balls last year. Needs to be a little more consistent, of course. And it was brought up, the bowl game performance last year and all the drops. And it wasn't just him. It was the whole wide receiver core. Well, not whole, but, it was a few players that had the drops in the bowl game. Got to get over that. Got to build on something besides that bowl game. But we saw flashes of the wide receiver group last year. You saw Xavier Henderson as a true freshman get on the field, get his feet wet early in games. They take that first core wide receivers out, and here come Xavier Henderson. Here come Trent Whittemore. Here come Justin Shorter as a second wave in important situations in the game. So the staff felt positive, felt comfortable putting a lot of those receivers that we're going to see this year out on the field. Now, don't get me wrong. You had Pitts, you had Toney dominate the stat sheet, but you still had those guys contributing some form or fashion. And now, there will be no newness. There's not going to be any surprises out there. a bit of what these guys can do. Need them to develop, needed them to step up their game. Billy Gonzalez is out there going to be coaching them up, better than anybody, or one of the top wide receiver coaches in the country. Well, I'm not really worried about wide receiver. It's going to change. The offense is going to change. The wide receivers have changed. The style of offense has changed. With what you've asked the wide receivers to do, from a Freddie Swain, Josh Hammond, Tyree Cleveland, to what we saw a Kadarius Toney, Kyle Pitts do, it was different. And the skill sets the last couple of years, just between 19 and 20, were completely different in what you were asking some of your wide receivers to do, comparing those 2 years. So I think we can feel pretty good about the status of the wide receiver room. As long as Emory Jones got some time to throw, that would be one big thing. And Stuart Reeves talked about it. There's going to be games where Emory Jones is going to be asked to throw more than 30 times. There's going to be a time he's going to be asked to throw 35, 40 times a game. Can he go out there and do it? Can he have time to go out there and do it? And then if he does, it'd be up there to the receivers to start making some plays out there and help the quarterback. You guys ready to move to defense? We know that's maybe the hottest topic for this Gators team, because there's a lot of confidence in Emory Jones. There's a lot of confidence in Dan Mullen to be able to build an offense that will work. Once again, he's been known for it. What about the defense? What about the defense? Can they bounce back? Can there be some confidence on that side of the ball? We'll hear from Dan Mullen, hear from a lot of players here, and talking about this defense.
I think we've addressed a lot of different situations that we feel a lot more comfortable with moving forward. Whether it's from our flexibility within our packages, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of our players, playing more together as a team, keeping guys out of bad situations, and finding ways to play at a consistent level within, leadership coming from our coaches and from our players in that mesh. All of those things combined, I think we're in a better place.
I feel like it's definitely no days can be taken off. At our job, the job that we have on the field, I mean, you can take no slacking. Like, you can't slack at all, So I mean, I always feel like my spot or anybody's spot can be taken at any time, So I mean, I always play with that chip on my shoulder. I feel like that's probably one of the biggest improvements of our defense. I honestly feel like the front seven, those boys, they're coming, especially with the D-line, with the newcomers we got. We're definitely going to shock a lot of people this year.
How easy does that make your job when they're being productive?
Yeah, and that's another thing. People don't understand how easy it makes our job as far as getting pressure, just getting back there to the QB, just interrupting timing. That makes our job a whole lot easier in the secondary.
It's definitely a team sport. Defense, you can't just have one guy. It takes all 11. It's competitive toughness, just being able to beat your man every single play. And I know we didn't have all the pieces last year. We definitely had the talent, but we just didn't put it together like we wanted to. So I think that'll be. I think you'll see that this year for sure.
And then how are you doing health-wise with everything?
I feel great. I know I've been through a lot or whatever, but I mean, it's all in the past. I'm ready to go for sure.
Our whole secondary as a whole, we're a great unit. Ain't no doubt in my mind that we can be the best secondary in the country. Especially with a lot of pieces getting added to us, we're just gonna be able to create depth and become stronger. I think all our DBs will get a chance to play this year. I think we're a great defensive back unit. I think iron sharpen iron. So if I know I got a great backup behind me, just gonna push us all as a team to get better. I think DBU coaches coming back. I think we're gonna be one of the top units in the country, if you ask me.
So I know. Last year, we didn't put everything together. I mean, we didn't tackle. There was a lot of things, but I think this year, coming in with a new mindset, and I think our guys are ready to play.
We'll try to be as a stronger unit, lean on each other, to eliminate as many mistakes as we can. Just coming to off-season, we create a brotherhood, to get closer. That's really off-season about, you can go through your trials and tribulations, working out, working real hard, but it's create a stronger bond.
Look, we've heard about that stronger bond going back to SEC Media Days. Zachary Carter, Ventrell Miller talking about that as well. I don't think there was much of a bond last year. And Dan Mullen even said it back at SEC Media Days, and he kind of mentioned it here again. He mentioned it back at SEC Media Days. You had the guys that were just looking out for themselves on defense, the independent contractors, as Dan Mullen said. And this time he did speak to more of the issues here. And he was mentioning, Dan Mullen did mention it was coaching and it was players. It was starting the leadership from the coaches and the players, the communication from the coaches and the players. It was an and. It wasn't this was on the players. It wasn't this was on the coaching staff. It was and. And look, when you look that bad, and you guys have heard me say this, it took both. It took a poor coaching job. It took players maybe being independent contractors, not taking the game serious enough, and playing for themselves. And it showed. In the defense stunk last year. So of course we new hires. We talk about all the issues that needed to be fixed going back to spring and implementing those changes. They're coming up for this fall, but really just these players talking about, what it takes to bounce back and the whole brotherhood about it. And look, you're going to get taught like this time of year, especially when it looked this bad. And they're going to say the good things about coming together. But I've talked to enough people, I think, behind the scenes a little bit, and that does seem to be there. The camaraderie. And look, maybe the camaraderie, you heard Stuart Reese and you heard some of the other players talk about it, was they weren't together a whole lot last year. Jeremiah Moons really spoke to this. They weren't together a whole lot leading into last year. They kind of lost that connection. They kind of lost that camaraderie a little bit. And you know what? That's one more thing that could have affected how the defense performed a little bit. I don't, a small part of it. I don't think it was the whole big issue there, but I don't think they really ever came together last year. You heard him mention the lack of tackling. We just talked about the lack of physicality on the offense. Well, there's a lack of physicality on the defense as well, the front seven in particular, and not in the whole, especially defensive backfield and the tackling issues that were in game 1 all the way to game 12. So they have to come together. They have to, take this fall camp as a brotherhood and come together to fix it. And we talked about the communication from game 1 to game 12 last year that lacked. These guys have to come together, and there can't be any more of these independent contractors anymore looking out for themselves and basically letting that dictate how the defense goes. And that's not going to work here. There, on the football side of things, and we heard the conversation of these guys helping each other, and in particular, the front seven helping the defensive backs. Of course, you don't have to cover as long, and I think you get that pressure up front. You could be a little more aggressive too as a defensive back. If you know those guys up front are going to be consistently harassing the quarterback, you can be a little more aggressive. Florida had so much trouble getting turnovers last year. Gervin Dexter was a player who had the interception for almost the first half of the season. The only defensive player who had, it was at least the first quarter of the season, the only interception come from Gervin Dexter. There was no aggression, whether it be in whether it be physicality, whether there was whether it be physical line, jamming at the line from the defensive backs, whether it be tackling, whether it be just a mindset. There was no physicality there from that defensive backfield, and I think some of it can do with the front seven as well, not maybe trusting that front seven. So I think you can be a little more aggressive. We'll maybe see more man coverage this year to help that mindset of it too. But that front seven is as good as we think it can be, and we'll get into a popular topic coming up right after this about that front seven. But part of that is if those guys are better, it can really help these defensive backs be more aggressive. Some of these defensive backs in this Todd Grantham defense are asked to cover 2 guys at one time, but that only works consistently if you're getting pressure up front. You can be a little more aggressive. You can trust that defensive, and if you can trust that defensive front, you can be a little more aggressive. You can chase the ball a little bit more instead of having to worry about keeping everything in front of you. That's probably part of the reason we saw these defensive backs play so far off last year. Was I don't think there was any trust last year. They didn't want to get beat over the top, so they play 6-7 yards off. Okay, well, easy first down. We may or may not make the tackle. Big plays are going to happen either way. So I think it is a symbiotic relationship between that front seven, between that back four, and how this defense is going to be able to take the next step in becoming a better defense. So one hot button topic was this the last few weeks in discussing this defense is a certain player who may or may not be out there for fall camp. if you listen to the Gator side of things, and I even said it here on Gators Breakdown about Brenton Cox, that he was injured, and the hope would be that he would be back by fall camp. Well, certain Georgia writer out there wrote that it was going to be a significant portion of the season that Brenton Cox would miss. We, on the Gator side, tried to tell you guys that it was not that serious. We told you before that report even came out that it was not that serious. We followed it up with that. Dan Mullen also backed us up on that today.
We expect him to be back. I don't know if we're going to let him go 100% right on day one, but, he's going to be out there practicing right away and building him up right now, with the time that he's missed, building him up, getting ready back to being 100% in not just the foot injury and within his training, conditioning, all that stuff. I expect big things out of him this year because, I thought he had a really solid year last year. Now a second year in the system, more experience, more veteran guy, an older guy, having to learn, look at what he did well and poorly last year and how to build off of that.
Build off of that. And we know Brenton Cox got to get better at setting the edge. And I know people want to keep pointing to, oh, he's not any good. He can't set the edge. Well, that's part of development. I mean, come on. There's a reason there's an off season. You get better at things. You get better at things. You identify things you had problems with. You go get better at it. You don't think they've been working on that this whole offseason? So Brenton Cox should be by game one. They could hold him out just as a safety precaution. He did play banged up last year with the foot that he had to have surgery on. That was bothering him during the season. There was a reason he had surgery after the season. He had an issue there. So gets that fixed, had a little bit of complication in the surgery, but won't really keep him out all that much. He will be practicing, as Mullen said, maybe not 100%. But look, there we go. We just talked about that front seven. He's an important piece in that front seven. Jeremiah Moon, can he stay healthy and be an important part of this front seven? You have the two new transfers up there. You have Zachary Carter playing in his more natural role. As I said this before, I really like the makeup of this front seven. I really think they can prove to be worthy when you look at that symbiotic relationship between the front seven and the back four. I really like this front seven. And to me, there may be a time where they got, especially early in the season, where they have to carry that defensive backfield. We have some questions back there of who's going to line up opposite Kyer Elam, who's going to line up with Trey Dean back there at safety. Those are some questions back there. There's a lot of names back there. Florida's got a whole lot of depth back there in that defensive secondary. But who's going to step up? And we'll get into that topic here in just a second about the fall camp battles coming up. We're looking at the poll that I sent out there. But Brenton Cox, important piece of that front seven. He's going to be out there for fall camp. Not to worry, Gator Nation. He will be out there. And if you listen to us, we were trying to steer you right, not listen to a Georgia reporter out there who was just reporting some false news out there for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't know why. But at least we had it right here on Gators Breakdown. So, all right. Let's get to that poll question. So, I asked on Twitter yesterday, which position group battle interests you the most as the Gators head into fall camp and why? 1,500 votes. Way to go, guys. Man, thank you very much for those 1,500 votes. So which position group battle interests you the most as the Gators head into fall camp and why? I listed the positions as running back, offensive line, wide receiver, defensive back. So the position group that interests at least the Twitter world out there the most, out of 1,500 votes, running back. That's the position group battle that interests at least Twitter Gator Nation out there the most. 41% of the vote goes to running back. 33% of the vote goes to the offensive line. 16% of the vote for the DBs, wide receiver. Understood? Is the position group that interests you the less because, of course, I think we have some comfortability there. But running back, I think we're comfortable there too, just really don't know how it's going to shake out. Offensive line, more of a concern, so that can interest you as well. That one was high, as I said, and defensive backfields that just got through talking about. A lot of position battles there as far as how that will shake out. I'm going to get some of your thoughts here. A lot of you guys left your thoughts on this topic. Alan Embry fan on Twitter says he chose running back because of the depth, and it's a good problem to have. I'm interested to see the dynamic of the room Do they ride the hot hand week by week? Does a bell cow emerge? Are all 5 going to get specific role to work in every game? Rocket Man House says running back is the most interesting battle. Offensive line has me the most worried. David Soderquist, offensive line, post the most question marks, but the running back stable is more interesting. Dan will play seniority / experience over raw talent as he always has. Expect to see Pierce, Davis, Wright this year sprinkled with a little Lingard and Bowman here and there. So there's the hot topics there as far as running backs go. And I like what Alan Embry fan says. Is there a hot hand week by week? Does a bell cow emerge? Are all 5 going to get specific roles to work in every game? I see that last part, all 5 getting specific roles to work in every game, as seeing as a possibility. You kind of saw that last year. And I mentioned with the wide receivers how that whole second group would come in. Well, Naquan Wright was the running back that would also come in with that group a lot of the time. Okay, well, do we kind of see that with the running back? All right, Dameon Pierce, you're going to get the first 2 drives. Malik Davis, you'll come in second quarter. Lorenzo Lingard, you come in second quarter. I mean, who knows? I don't know how it's going to come out, but is it something like that? Is it a platoon of when they switch wide receivers, here comes a second or third running back in a 2 running back set? I don't know. I hope a bell cow emerges. I'm not so sure Mullen really allows it to emerge. I mean, I don't know. If a running back goes, I say to Marcus Bowman, more times than not, early in a game, he busts a long run. When's the next time he gets a carry? Is he out there the next drive? Is he out there 2 or 3 drives later? I mean, Mullen mentioned how he likes to keep these guys healthy, how he likes to keep that rotation healthy. It helps them last the whole season. It helps them in their potential NFL careers, not to have a whole lot of mileage on them. So a bell cow, not likely. This Mullen, very, very few. We went back and looked at our run game about a month or 2 ago. Very rarely does Mullen allow a running back to really rack up a number of carries. So we'll see how that goes. But also, I don't think he's ever had running backs like he has in DeMarcus Bowman, potentially Lorenzo Lingard as well, if they live up to the 5-star status. If they live up to a 5-star status, he's never had running backs like that. So now some have developed to be really, really good running backs. I'm just talking about star potential and how it goes from there. We'll see if those guys live up to that star potential. And if they do, does Mullen feed them the ball? It's a hot hand every week. Is it a guy who practices better during the week? I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see how that running back and how that run game, how it shakes out. And a lot of you agreed, as I said, it was the leading vote getter of which position group battle interests you the most as the Gators head into fall camp. But let's get into a little more of your thoughts here of people who didn't necessarily agree with the running backs. Ken Musk says, I'm saying wide receiver because if you look at explosive plays, the last 2 years, it comes from the wide receivers getting open and making catches. We don't have the offensive line to be consistently explosive running the football. Very interesting thought there. If you don't think the offensive line gets any better, and if you don't think these running backs help the offensive line take some steps, and if they're not going to be able to bust the explosive runs, basically like I talked about earlier, if you think explosive runs are still going to be an issue, then wide receiver can interest you a whole lot because who's going to be hitting those big plays in the receiver group? We haven't seen it consistently from really any of them so far. So which ones are going to step up to be the explosive playmaker? I think Jacob Copeland has that possibility. I think Xavier Henderson has that possibility. Justin Shorter, I think, in a kind of red zone situation where, you're at the 30, 20-yard line. If you have enough time, throw it up, go get it in the end zone. I think Justin Shorter is that type of wide receiver there. I don't think he's your catch and run, outrun everybody type of receiver there. So, we'll see, can other wide receivers step up to be in that more explosive mold like a Kadarius Toney. AJ Hookem Gators says wide receiver for me. I feel like we are stacked at running back, so the opposite end of the spectrum there. So I feel like we are stacked at running back, so only good news there. I don't think there's enough depth at offensive line to make for a good position battle. Defensive back is looking better. Wide receiver, though, we have some guys who flash, but we need a difference maker to step up this year. There we go. Just kind of said the same thing. So, yeah, who's going to be the difference maker there? There hasn't been anybody who's really separated enough from the group, I don't think. Justin Short or Jacob Copeland were very similar in stats last year when you go back and look at it. So is there a guy who separates? Does there need to be one or two guys that separate, or can it be a big group effort? I'm very interested to see how that shakes out. Kadarius Toney had 70 catches last year. 70. Nobody's getting near that this year, even with more games being played. I don't think anybody's getting near that 70 catch. So is it a committee there that's also explosive? Are there two or three guys that can be that explosive wide receiver? All right. Zach Amato, we'll move on to another position. He says the offensive line. He says this because if they aren't good, the other groups can't shine and play the way they need to. I really like that. We'll adjust like always, sure, but it's not going to be effective to the level we know it can be. Good point. I mean, if you're looking at this offensive line, well, Emory Jones would be better if the offensive line's better. The running backs would be better if the offensive line's better. And like he says, there will be adjustments. They adjusted last year. The offense was still good because of an elite passing game. They adjusted, but was it truly effective at times? More times than not, yes. But there were times when you needed to run the ball and you could not run the ball. There's the effectiveness of an offense. So, and look, in a lot of those games where Florida still struggled to run the ball, but they were still beating opponents by a couple scores, running game was not effective, but overall, because you just built up a lead so large, you could say the offense was effective, just not effective in running up the clock. So there's a different way to look at it, but that's one way. Gator Laker Colt says the O-line, hands down. We need an offense dictated by us and how we move teams off the ball, not an offense dictated by how quick a defensive lineman can beat one of our guards or tackles. I love that, and it's a saying that I don't use enough that I have said in the past. I like for my offense to dictate the game, not be dictated. And that, at least in the run game, has been an issue. Passing game to a point, when you look at Geno Lance on that right side, Kyle Trask had to get rid of the ball a whole lot more, or a lot earlier than he really needed to at some points, because that right side of the line was being dictated by a pass rusher and a mismatch. So I do like that. You get a mean streak, like we talked about, a little more physicality in this run game. They can dictate the game. They can dictate the pace of the game. Mullen loves to do that. If you go back to his history of an offense that can run the ball well, he can dictate the game. There we go. I mean, that's I do like that aspect that Gator Laker Colt comes out. If the offensive line is where we think it can be, then you can, or the whole run game, then it can dictate the game. The Gator Great says, I'm most concerned about the offensive line, but don't think we have enough guys on campus for a competition. Ooh, that one hurts, and that one, and the truth hurts. I talked about the offensive line a while ago, and I said I can only list 6 guys, and like I said, a lot of you would throw Geno Lance out of that 6, and that leaves you 5. So there's not a lot of proven depth, and that's the biggest issue. I mean, you've had, and this, I don't want to get on the recruiting side of it too much, but going in, it's pertinent for this because you can look at that recruiting part of it 2 ways. They got commitments from some 4-star guys who are no longer on campus. Wardrick Wilson, Isaiah Wilson. I mean, there's the 2 4-star offensive linemen that should be in the rotation that never played a down for the Gators. There's not enough competition. There's really not. And how do you manufacture it? Now, hopefully there's something in this offseason that we're going to see. And I know going back to spring and coming out of spring, the offensive line still wasn't necessarily a huge strong point coming out of spring. But I do think they were working on things in the spring. I think they were working on things that the offense can get better at. I think what this fall camp is for is to start working on the things that you do well. And I think running the ball, it's that will be focused on to get better coming out of that. But I think there are aspects of the run game that they like. better in aspects of the run game that they can get better at. And then I think we're just going to look at is there enough competition to help push that? If somebody's not getting their job done, a lot of you out there, come out and say, why is Jimmy Lance still on the field? And I've said time and time again, I mean, part of it's if you trust the staff or not, and I absolutely get that. But if one guy is struggling, can they be pulled out? Has somebody else proven themselves enough to be put out there? And I think that's part of it. There we go. Donovan German. I got a couple more here before we move on. Donovan German says, with the exception of the offensive line, the other positions have ballers that make me unconcerned. Need excellent safety and star play for this defense to work. Has been bad since Chauncey left. Does UF have the personnel? Offensive line is second, but mainly because of DeLance. Yep, there you go. There's one for the defensive backfield, and I can see, until we see that that side of the ball improve, I can see where that interests a lot of people as well. And partly because of who lines up where. There are so many names for Florida that you're just wondering where they're going to go. Who lines up second consistently, that second DB spot opposite of Elam? Is it Jadon Hill, who we heard from today? And Mullen talked him up as a starter at SEC Media Days. Does Jason Marshall come along in fall camp and force the staff's hands to say, hey, there's our second cornerback, a true freshman. We're going to throw him out there. Now, look, I'll get into that in just a second. I'll come back to Jason Marshall there. We got one more topic before I'm going to sign off here. I'll come back to Jason Marshall there. Safety, Mordecai McDaniel. He the other safety out there with Trey Dean. But where does that leave players like Kamara Wilcoxon and Rashad Torrance and I'm drawing a blank here, but you go along the list there. We've had a lot of transfers too. But back out of Trevez Johnson, where does that leave players like him? The Trey Dean, at times, as the season went on last year, we saw him getting better at safety. Can he continue to progress at safety? And then can Torrance and McDaniel go out there and line up and be like we saw the communication issues last year. We saw just one guy might make a good play, but on the other side look completely lost. Or you see a double DB blitz that shouldn't have happened. So there's a lot of names out there that I think you can really look at. You just don't know where they're going to play. Where does DeJuan Black fit in? Where does Perkins, the new transfer, fit in? If Elijah Blades, that should happen anytime now, comes on campus. So there's, you're throwing names at it, but you don't know where these guys necessarily fit. You don't know where they are going to necessarily play. You don't know how much they're going to necessarily play. That's what this fall camp's going to be for, and I can see why it interests, because you have a lot of names and not really knowing how much they're going to play or where they're going to play. So I like that. I like it because you got a lot of depth. It's up to this coaching staff to best figure out where those guys are going to play. Overtime in the swamp says defensive backs last year was a monstrous letdown, especially the fans who yelled DBU on Twitter and chanted after interceptions. For half of the season, our only interception was Gervin Dexter, a defensive tackle. They lost their confidence. It ran its course in 2020. I want to see DBs get their confidence back, become ball hawks again. I want to see a fundamentally sound defense. I have faith in our offense. The defense has to be out to prove 2020 was a fluke. At US Sports 24_7, he goes, interest me, DB for sure. Does Torrance get the safety spot opposite of Dean? Who's the cornerback to opposite of Elam, Hill, Marshall, incoming transfer Perkins, who plays star? Still haven't figured out that position since Chauncey. There we go. Yep. I mentioned that star position a couple weeks ago and how important it is for this defense. And I think we have seen how important it is for this defense because they haven't been able to figure that position out, and the defense has struggled. You get a playmaker there, a versatile playmaker there that can tackle, that can put his face in a tackle, go out there and cover, go chase a linebacker, go chase a wide receiver, go chase a running back. That has to be a versatile playmaker there. I think Florida has not been able to find that. And excuse me, I don't really mean to bring the name up, but Marco Wilson there, he played that role pretty good toward the end of 2019. I thought it was something to build on for 2020. Turns out it was not. So there was a little bit of good play there. But is it a Travis Johnson? Is it the one black in some packages and situations? Dan Mullen spoke about that too. And earlier, I kind of glossed that of the coaching staff needs to do a better job of identifying who can play where and how versatile they can be in playing that role. Can they stay on the field? And if they can't stay on the field, can you get them off the field in time to bring somebody else on the field and not look lost and confused? So there's a whole lot that goes into this defense and fixing that defense. All right, one more topic, guys. I want to bring up one more fall camp topic that I think is a pretty good one. So you guys, if you're watching live, if you're watching on the replay, it doesn't matter. First, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. But I want you to leave your comments in here. Give me some true freshmen to watch out for who you think could play some roles. Now, one reason I want to bring this up, this is Dan Mullen's 4th year. What true freshman on offense has made an impact? Hasn't been one. Really has not been one, especially skill players. So a lot of you are in the live chat right now on YouTube. And look, Xavier Henderson played a bit last year, but wasn't an impact guy. Now, look, a lot of this, and I'm not saying anything about Dan Mullen and his recruiting here. A lot of it's played out because you've had a lot of experienced talent, especially at wide receiver coming up. So, there hasn't really been an opportunity for a lot of true freshmen to come out there and make an impact. Is that this year? I'm looking for a couple true freshmen on offense. Nick Elksnis, the tight end, had a great spring. He was a mismatch out there. Florida's trying to find ways to replace Kyle Pitts. There might be one in a true freshman. There would tight end Nick Elksnis. And then I'm also looking at Marcus Burke, big-time wide receiver at Trinity Christian in Jacksonville. Big-bodied wide receiver that can fly down the field. He might be your 9 route. What we thought maybe Tyree Cleveland could be. That might be what we can get out of a Marcus Burke in his true freshman year. And I'm not saying these guys are going to do that. I'm just saying if there's true freshmen to look out for that could make an impact and a reason why, these are the guys I'm looking for. Elksnis, who had a really good spring. Burke, who I think has potential to be a player down the field. Defense, that's where I said I'd come back around to Jason Marshall. He's the easy one to pick out as far as a true freshman goes to make an impact. Quentin Lee, man, I see you saying Black, DeJuan Black, I'm sure. He's a newcomer to watch, but of course not a true freshman. I'm just kind of looking at true freshmen here as making an impact. Hasn't been many on the offensive side. Defense, we've seen it. Kyrie Elam toward the end of 2019. Gervin Dexter played a whole lot as a 5-star. It's been a couple of the highly recruited defensive players who have made some impacts in Kyrie Elam, and Gervin Dexter. But I want to see some on offense and on defense. I think you got to go Marshall. I think it's the easy way to go there. Maybe Donovan McMillan at the safety position. I heard some good things about him in the spring. I think it would take a while to get to him at safety, but maybe he's that good to where he's just pressing the issue there at safety, becomes that playmaker. I like his size. I like his speed. I think he's got the perfect size to even get physical at safety a little bit. So I like Donovan McMillan back there. Might be getting too ahead of myself there, but true freshman-wise, I'm looking for Jason Marshall. He's going to get a lot of playing time, and he might be that type that turns out to be like a Kyrie Elam. You sprinkle him in during the season. Toward the end of the season, you can just tell he's going to be that next great UFDB. That's probably the path I see, but not really a whole lot of room for a true freshman on defense this year either. If you can count on the guys that you've had, that you were hoping make big leaps from 2020 to 2021, and just some names that have been there like a Zachary Carter, a Brenton Cox to a certain extent, a Jeremiah Moon, names that have been there that either need to step up just a bit, show a little more production. There's just not a whole lot of room out there. Fred K, I see you say Desmond Watson. Yeah, maybe so. Desmond Watson could be that guy, a true freshman. We saw his name brought up a whole lot this past spring. So Desmond Watson could certainly be a guy. I hate picking trench guys as true freshmen, but Gervin Dexter was one last year. But Desmond Watson, of course, not the 5-star status that Gervin Dexter was. He was one of the top players in the country coming in, but that size is special. He's lost some of that weight. It was and it was planned. It was good to lose some of that weight, but could end up being an impact player there, as you said, in run games, in run defense situations there for Desmond Watson. Whew. A whole hour and 10 minutes by myself. Ooh, man, I didn't think I could talk that much, but there we go. So what happens when football season is right around the corner? The Gators are starting fall practice. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Hope you guys enjoyed hearing all the sound bites there. It took a long time to put all the sound bites together for this episode here. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed putting it together for you, and just getting the thoughts of the head man himself, Dan Mullen, and the players heading into the season. I think the defense was a little bit embarrassed the way they played last year. I think we can look for a bounce back just in that part of it. They don't want to be embarrassed again. The offensive line kind of in the same boat, maybe discussed a little bit as well when Stuart Reese and how those guys can bounce back. Probably a little bit of embarrassment the way they played as well at times. So hopefully Gators are bouncing back, get on the field, get all this stuff figured out. We got about a month before the season starts, so exciting times coming. So fall camp starts Friday. That's what this episode was for, to kind of preview that. There will be a presser right after the first practice. Don't know how much we'll get. We should be getting some video and stuff as well from Florida from practice. But, of course, they're only going to send us what they want to send us and what they want to put out there. So you're not going to glean too much from it. But at least we get a little bit of it, a little bit of football here in the next month before the Gators kick off. So, all right, guys, that will do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. Share the episode. Let everybody know out there where they can get a really good fall camp preview coming up here on Gators Breakdown. So everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, check you out later.